Hello there and welcome to Agritalk right here on KTN Farmers TV. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Now today we'll be talking about indigenous crops, and joining us is Dr. Njoki Mitugo from the Africa Indigenous Foods and Food Systems joining us here, and we'll be delving deeper into the indigenous crops, trying to look at the history of the indigenous crops and the different seasons. And we're also going to be looking at an expo that is coming up. She's going to be also explaining to us what this expo is all about, and how we, as also someone who is a young farmer, also a farmer who is trying to get into this, what you can do in order for you to just embrace this expo and also get into it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's just look at the history of the indigenous crops and just explain to us how we have gotten into the kale system, and also because we've gotten used to this kale, but the indigenous ones, the ones like Nsaga, Managu that we have, we've set them aside for maybe, okay, this one is sick, let us give him Managu.
Yeah.
Yes. So just explain to us about this.
And we are very excited when you talk about the Asian vegetables and,
yes.
and you talk about their nutritional value. I think it's good to understand how we got here, because without a history we cannot be able to understand the present, and we cannot be able to change the future or even see the direction we are taking. So the history of our indigenous food is associated with the systems that have been there. We're talking about colonization, marginalization, a Western kind of a civilization being introduced to us. And we came to believe that civilization is being westernized. Going to school, and I don't want to talk much about that because that's a topic of another day, because our school system is not actually an education system based on our African culture or an African perspective. It's the Western kind of an education. So it's something that is being repeated to us. We've got to go to school, we have to learn, and whatever we are learning is not our story. We are learning somebody else's history or somebody else's story, and our story is being told from that person's perspective.
Yes.
A person who studied us, a person that lived with us, and a person who understands our power and our strength, understanding who Al-Kabilan really is. And then a generation was wiped. And then another generation came, and the brainwashing continued, that being westernized is being civilized. And you cannot eat terere because you're westernized. You've got to eat cabbages, red cabbages, white cabbages. You've got to eat kales. You've got to eat spinach. And as I've said, nowadays we are talking about Asian vegetables. But if you look at our food, the African indigenous food, along the way, our vegetables, 90% of our vegetables were classified as weed. Not weed, not weed. Oh. Magugu.
Yes. I've gotten you, the weeds. Yes.
Magugu. And what is happening is that we have chemicals specifically for every kind of weed now, in an effort to destroy anything that is ours. Why? Because our vegetables are of high nutritional value, they are medicinal, and they are tied with our culture. And because without a culture, you cannot call yourself a people. So that is how we lost our food. And then when we were growing up, well, I'm not very young, I'm not very old. Eating a certain kind of food was considered uncivilized. And this certain kind of food is our food, like the bananas. You allow me to say it in Kikuyu.
Yes.
Mame tahato. That kind of a banana is not even there today. It is extinct. There is another kind of a banana that was specifically for children. It's a big kind of a banana, but it's not also very popular. So when you're seen eating that kind of a banana, oh, you're still there. You people, you're still eating those. Oh, yes, we are eating sweet bananas. You know, the ones that have come from Brazil. They are the ones, they are the in thing. So, and then being looked down that you're eating your githeri, your maize and beans. And in our home, you're eating rice. And don't forget, it is rice and potatoes.
Yes.
And then now the introduction of the exotic species of vegetables, the skuma wiki. Skuma wiki is just a connived name because there is no African word for skuma wiki or canes. Even in Kikuyu, we try to call it dhokoma, but dhokoma is actually sukuma wiki.
Yes.
Spinach, diphinach. That is, there is no Kikuyu name for it, but our vegetables have their names. Mikegelia, terere, managu, dhage. What else in Kisii?
In Kisii, we have, of course, we have managu, we have chinsaga. Yes.
Yeah, you know, our food bear our names. Our cuisines also bear our names. But along the way, they were classified as not classy. And that is how even our governments didn't raise a finger when our vegetables were being classified as weed. Nobody spoke. Nobody raises a finger when our indigenous maize, I know you didn't find the colored maize. There was some very sweet maize that was colored purple, red, blue, yellowish, that even when you roast it, you wouldn't know when it is ready or when it is not. So that maize kind of got extinct. And we are receiving seeds that we do not even know whether they are fit for us, first of all, as human beings, fit for our consumption, is fit for our soils, fit for our climate. We are importing exotic potatoes. I know you didn't find the potatoes that my grandmother used to roast them, even my mother. And they would taste something between a yam and a sweet potato and a potato. That potato is no longer there. We have another species of potatoes, a species that you cannot even propagate seed as a farmer. So it means we were tied into a system of just giving, but not getting anything. The other thing that happened to us when we were influenced by the Western civilization is the removal of the granary from the home. I know you didn't find a granary in your home.
Yes.
But when I was growing up, there was a granary. And a granary is not a store. And our people knew what a granary is. And a home was respected by the size of the granary.
And as you've explained and brought us the history from when the rain started beating us up to where we are right now, when we look at the society right now and what we are embracing as food and what we are embracing as vegetables to grow and also the foods, what effects have we as neglecting the indigenous foods brought to ourselves? What are some of the effects or the impacts of neglecting these indigenous foods?
Yes, the major one, and it is the center of everything, is health. I'm going to mention something which I know somebody can put a bullet in my head, that the introduction of the food industry came at the same time when there was the introduction of the pharmaceutical industry. Somebody knew what they were doing. Because if you listen to your doctors today, they talk about we should avoid eating processed food, but we are still processing the food. You should eat food that is full of fiber. What are we eating? We should eat food that is not contaminated with chemicals. Nowadays, even buying a fruit, when a doctor tells you to eat fruits and vegetables, you have no idea what you're eating, because our mangoes are no longer there. We don't like them. We like these exotic mangoes, which have to be sprayed from when they are there. You have planted them all along. You are spraying them with different chemicals, and a chemical for every pest. On the other hand, the pharmaceutical industry has a solution to all these problems that are being caused by the food industry. So it is an economic opportunity. So our food became, or our lack of thinking about growing our food became an economic opportunity for somebody else. Even when we are talking about agribusiness, we don't actually talk about food. We talk about the market. It is a food industry. That is why somebody will spray their tomatoes today, harvest them tomorrow, and put them in the market without a care about the person who is going to consume.
Wow,
Yeah.
very well explained. And now, let's also move forward and look at our indigenous foods.
Yeah.
Many of them, you don't need to prepare your land in a certain way for them to grow, because some of them even grow on the side of the road.
Yes.
So, what do we need to do in order to go back there? What needs to be done? Because the other crops, let us talk about maybe the kales, the spinach. You have to prepare your land, because I've never, honestly speaking for myself, I've never seen maybe kale just growing on the side of the road.
Yeah.
But these others you find, they're growing somewhere. You'll just find them somewhere. So how do we go back to this?
You know, I'm smiling because you're already giving an answer. That the way our God of Al-Kabilan, the way he had positioned us, that before the harvest, there are food that is growing on the farm.
Yes.
And you've said it so well. You don't need to plant weed because now it is classified as weed. It grows on the roadside. But doesn't mean that it has to continue growing on the roadside. We can propagate those seeds and we throw them on our farms. Then as long as we don't use the chemicals. Right.
And still, we are going to stick to the indigenous foods before we get to even to discuss more about the African food systems and
Yes.
what you're planning to do. All right. Now, you had mentioned about the seeds.
Yes.
And there has been controversy where there has been oversharing of indigenous seeds, and there has been stakeholders and even the government saying that there is oversharing of the seeds.
Yes.
So what's the way forward when it comes to this?
I'm laughing because I want to ask you a question. Who is a stakeholder of my food? Because when we are talking about indigenous foods and food actually, I'm underlining the word food. I am the master of my food. I should manage what I eat. Are we together?
Yes.
And that is how the African lived. There is a saying in almost all the African communities that you cannot deny somebody seed. Because if I give you seed, it means I won't feed you. If I give you seed, you know, you'll be able to feed yourself. And this is what was happening with us. There is an industry that was created when we forsook our food systems. And it's also the seed industry. It's a commercial entity. And a business person will always love to protect their business.
Yes.
And they will do anything to make sure that their business is protected. And that is why they will push the governments to come up with policies to protect, not the people, but to protect their business. Nowadays, we are having seeds. I mean, we are buying seeds that even if you plant and grow, you cannot propagate. I think it is, can I say it's a well-thought system of making us slaves of that industry. Yes, and I'm talking like that with a lot of confidence, and also knowing that somebody can shoot me on the head because of revealing this. Unfortunately, the time has come where we have to speak. We have to speak what we know. I'm tired of Africa being associated with poverty. I'm tired of Africa being associated with lack of food, malnutrition, sickness, you know, and backwardness. So I think it's a high time we start talking what is there. So
Yes.
the seed industry is a business, and the owners have to protect their business. So is the fertilizer and the chemical industry. They have to protect their interest. That is why they will tell you don't plant the potatoes where you're planting the maize. Why? Because they want you to use a chemical specifically that will save the maize and it will destroy the potato. And then you have to plant the potato on a separate piece of land, and you don't plant anything else there. Everything else becomes weed. So that is the kind of chemicals that are being produced today, and that is what the farmers are receiving.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Now let's move on and look at the Africa Indigenous Food Systems Expo.
Yes.
Yes. How did it come about, and what was the motivation behind it for you to have it now in 2023?
Yeah.
And just explain to us about it, and also tell us even the dates, and if someone would want to attend or would want to come, what they need to do.
Yeah. Thank you. From 2017, I got a chance of working closely with the government then. And I think there was a drought. Something just opened my eyes, and I'm looking at the drought situation. And like in Kenya, there are areas that are prone to drought. We are looking at Turkana, we are looking at northern Kenya.
Yes.
And I started asking myself, have the Turkanas always lived in Turkana land? And the answer is yes. The people in northern Kenya, the people in Kajiado, they've always lived there. Then how comes we have a problem now? So that's when I decided to dig deeper, to understand where we and what we can do. And that's how I ended up thinking about or coming up with that concept of learning from the indigenous knowledge, learning from our people. They never went hungry. They had their seeds. They had their way of storing. The Turkana, I don't know whether you know that the Turkana community was the first community to make powdered milk. They used to prepare for drought, so they would make powdered milk to store that milk. Yes, but today they are not doing it. The people, the pastoralists, they have the way of storing their meat. They would slaughter their cows, their goats, their camels. And there's a way they would treat that meat to last even for a year, 3 years, because most of the time the drought goes for 3 years.
Yes.
If they could store that meat for 3 years. So they were provided for 3 years. So they were able to cull their herd. There's no use of having 100 cattle and then 50 dies or 70 dies, and you start crying to the government. So our people knew the drought is coming, so we start carrying our herds and we start storing this meat. So with a smaller herd, they were able to manage. So that is the knowledge that is still there. That is the knowledge we don't learn from school. That is the knowledge that is not recorded anywhere, because Africans, we give our information through storytelling. And the storytelling is not recorded. So that's how I decided we need to go back and learn from that indigenous perspective. The Kikuyus also, let me be proud because I'm a Kikuyu, they would store their meat even up to 6 years. Yeah. The Kikuyus, they knew the honey is a preservative. Nowadays, you have to go to school to learn that honey is a preservative.
Yes.
Nowadays, we are going back, we are hearing nutritionists telling us that oil seed is bad. I mean, the oil that comes from the seed is bad. It is full of cholesterol. Our people knew that. That is why they always used the fat from the animals. And then when we went to school, we could not eat that fat. So we got to ask ourselves, who is wiser, us or those who have gone?
Yes.
So,
basically, this expo is taking us back.
Yes, it is taking back to who we are, learning from that indigenous knowledge, because it never failed them. What we have learned today is failing us. So, you have gone to the shop, you've bought a shoe. That shoe is pinching you. You're not comfortable. What do? You continue wearing it? No. You ask yourself, where did I go wrong? Is it my foot that is growing? or is it the shoe that is getting smaller? And then you'll discover, I bought my shoe two sizes smaller. So this is what this expo is about. Where we lost it and how, because the knowledge does not die. The knowledge is still there. We have people who are older than me, they are still living. Some of our parents are still living. They have not that knowledge with them. we can learn from them. And then once we learn, we document that for future. I know it is a fight because we are fighting, I've told you, with those big industries that has been feeding from us. But do we say it is okay, let them continue feeding? I don't think so. I believe we need to learn from them. So that's why we organized the expo. African Indigenous Foods and Food Systems sought a partnership with the Kenya Agriculture and Research Organization, the Food Crops Research Unit. And they were very excited because they say this is something they have been doing, but nobody asks them. They have over 100 indigenous seeds. Nobody is asking. Nobody is even asking them to propagate. But they have already started. Now we have started propagating, and we will start teaching our people. Let me give you another example. I think it is during Kebaki's time, there was an outcry of aflatoxin in the Unga. And then there was a policy that was rushed where the millers were to introduce a 10% base to that flour. Because even the nutritionist came up and said that flour is just nothing. People eat nothing. So they're supposed to have a base of sweet potatoes and cassava. Nowadays, you talk with the millers, they are telling us there are no cassava, there are no sweet potatoes. So we are also opening that economic opportunity to our people. Cassava is indigenous, sweet potatoes is indigenous. So there is a big economic opportunities, and especially for the young agriculturalists. And then this indigenous system is all about diversification. Right now, when we talk about hunger and planting, when it rains, we all rush to plant maize and beans, and we are comfortable. Yet in our people, they know which season to plant what. So the indigenous systems teaches us diversification. We know when to plant our beans, when to plant our broad beans, when to even to have our goats and our sheep mate, because they cannot mate during drought time. They will die. So that is what that knowledge is about. And every day I'm receiving calls and emails of people wanting to come in and be part of it. I know many organizations, especially the financial institutions, they think ahead of us because theirs is making and creating business. They have seen the big business opportunity and financial opportunity. We also want to teach our people to do value addition at home level. Our people do that. They knew how to mill, but maybe we don't use what the items they used then because they are not there. So that's why we are talking about applying technology to that indigenous knowledge, because we also have to move with the modern life. Even when you talk about the granary, we are not restoring that granary that my grandmother had. We got to look at the modernizing it and making it acceptable as per today. So the expo will be held in the month of November, from 21st to 25th of November. It will be at the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Center in Mogoga. Mogoga is off the Nairobi-Nakuru Highway after Sigona. There is a small town called Zambezi. During our time, there used to be a famous motel called Zambezi Motel. Everybody knew it, or everybody we knew that. So that is the place. So from there you branch. It's about 3 kilometers or 5 kilometers from the main road. That's where we'll be. We are inviting exhibitors associated with the food industry, health, technology, and anyone who want to sell their business and want to put their business on a global platform. We are welcoming them. Talk to us. We have our website. Our website is www.africanindigenousfoodexpo.org. I know somebody will capture that. It will be displayed. So you visit our website, you register, you can register on the website, and then we'll get back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Njoki Mitugo. Right there, speaking to us passionately about how we need to go into the indigenous food systems and also the importance of this and the expo also. And remember, When we come back, we're going for a short break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Sarah Kahori, who is an expert in landscape restoration for climate change, and she's also going to be speaking about the importance of indigenous food systems vis-a-vis climate change. So don't go too far. We'll be back with more.